Joined now by Adrian Jones, National Officer for Unite the Union. He's going to be speaking at the conference later on today, but he's joined me here to give me a flavour of what we're going to be talking about and some of the major issues. We've just had talking to Joan Aiken actually, and along with Matt from Unite, she's one of the judges for the Driver of the Year. And we were commenting last night how interesting was the number of lady drivers who are winning awards. I know one of the themes you're going to be talking about is diversity and how we can attract more women, ethnic minorities into the industry. So it's a key theme. We're short of drivers, and yet we seem to struggle. You know, it's a very male, stale, white driver population. So, what do you think, from the Unite's point of view? What are we doing wrong as an industry that we can't attract more women, more ethnic people?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of what the industry's doing wrong. It's what the industry can do better. So, I'm not looking at it from a negative point of view. Let's look at it from a positive, proactive point of view. And I think there are a number of things, really. I think the first thing, and the point that I'll be making to the conference, is we need to really think about how we can change how we do things now. So it's not a matter of putting another sticker on the back of a trailer saying drivers are required, because all you're doing is recruiting other drivers from other companies. And that's just not sustainable. So we need to look at different opportunities. But to do that, there's no point me and you as white middle-aged men saying, right, we need to do this for ethnic minorities. We have to interact with those underrepresented communities. And that's really what we as Unite, as the country's largest union, have got the opportunity to bring to the discussion, really.
Okay. Is it a matter of pay? Will higher pay rates attract more people into the industry and fill this driver shortage that we're always hearing about? Is it a matter of pay, or is it, as Joan was pointing out a minute ago, more about respect?
I think it's both. However, if you put an extraordinarily high rate of pay in any job, people will do it. They will put up with the bad parts of the job because the financial rewards are significant. In this industry, in our industry, that's just not sustainable. Low margins, that's another discussion, but that's just not sustainable. But pay is a massive element to it, and that's what we do. You know, that's our bread and butter. That's about negotiations, terms and conditions, getting decent rates of pay. And are some drivers underpaid? Most definitely, for the skills and knowledge and experience that you need to be a driver. Definitely unrecognised financially. But it is about respect. There's a whole list of issues. I've already seen a couple of presentations from first thing this morning, a whole list of issues about why we can't recruit. So there isn't a silver bullet. There isn't one thing that will solve it. We have to deal with a number of different issues. And there's certain things that employers can do, there's certain things that government can do, there's certain things that the industry can do collectively. What I'm a little bit frustrated about is the fact that the industry seems to be looking outward, that something needs to change and looking for other people to do it, challenging government to do more. And I think there needs to be a long, hard look internally of how we can work together as an industry, because Unite is a stakeholder in the industry, to try and do things differently, be more creative, take some chances, take some opportunities about making a difference.
I mean, you're right, the industry has to do a lot for itself, but I think one thing the government has done and hasn't worked is the apprenticeship levy. We have a crying shortage of people queuing up, apparently wanting to be HGV drivers, and the apprenticeship levy just doesn't seem to be working as a funding mechanism. What's your view on the levy?
The apprenticeship levy, great in theory, excellent idea, to have a fund established from business to fund business development. I absolutely get that. I think as many things like this, it's over-administrative, a little bit too complicated, particularly for companies where there isn't the capability of dedicating a resource to it. I've spoken to employers and encouraged them to take advantage of the apprenticeship levy, because you can take more out than you put in. And they just haven't got the expertise and capability to be able to access that properly. And I know the RHA and the other associations have been working hard to bust some of the myths about it and assist businesses, but it still is a bit too bureaucratic. But I don't think that's the answer anyway. I don't think that will be the panacea to the problem. It will be part of a solution. I think it would help with the image, the professionalism. But I really don't think that we should be focusing as much energy as we do on the apprenticeship levy and apprenticeships, when there are other things we can also focus on that would, I believe, deliver more rewards.
Right, okay. I mean, the challenge seems to be is we have Eastern European drivers came in, in the last driver shortage, and some of those are leaving and going home now with Brexit and with the exchange rate and things like that. Are you concerned that the industry and the agencies are going to start just looking a bit further afield for more cheap labour to bring in and keep a lid on wages by bringing in cheap foreign labour?
I think it's a really important point. We've already seen, we work with sister unions across Europe, and we've already seen in Southern Europe drivers being brought in from Northern Africa, for example, and the Philippines even. We've seen drivers being brought in groups. So it is an issue. I don't think it's a massive issue for us. I'm not running scared of that. I think if we make sure that our regulations and the laws that we have in place are enforced properly, then I think we can manage that. I have no problem with anybody from anywhere in the world coming to the UK and seeking to improve their lives. I have no problem with that whatsoever. What I do have a problem with is the expectation from some employers who will believe that if I import a Filipino driver, that I just have to maintain their standard of living in the Philippines, rather than actually saying, no, we have a standard of living in the UK, we have a standard of employment rights, etc. in the UK, and that's what we will offer. As long as that happens, absolutely no problem at all, Stephen, with importing drivers from elsewhere in the world.
Do you welcome this HMRC crackdown that we've been hearing about on bogus self-employed drivers? Do you think that's another way that employers are getting around paying drivers the right rate?
Absolutely. I could not agree more with that. We've seen in other industries, Unite has had a campaign running for years in the construction industry, for example, where bogus self-employed is absolutely rife. And we've seen a development and expansion of that in road transport and logistics as well. I welcome the proposals for 2020, in April 2020, and the change to IR35 and working off payroll and all that good technical stuff. It needs to be done properly, because what I don't want to see is drivers who have, with the best intentions, followed a career to maximise their livelihoods and maximise their income, to suddenly be penalised and thrown on the side of the road. The industry can't afford to do that anyway, so it needs to be managed, it needs to be done sensibly. But yes, when you've got a driver who is working for an agency, who is a limited company driver working through an agency for a third-party logistics operator for a major high street retailer, and all they do every day is deliver in that retailer's vehicle to those retailer stores, completely that is not self-employed.
It's bogus, isn't it?
That's not self-employed. And we need to have a really sensible discussion about how that's managed. I know the RHA has been very vocal on that, and we absolutely work together with the RHA on that. HMRC has had a view. The traffic commissioners have had a view. So why is it still so prevalent? So if we need to crack down through HMRC, then that's what we need to do.
That'd be great. One big issue, as well as wages for drivers, is health and safety. And there's been a big debate recently about whether there should be a tail lift weight limit for tail lift deliveries, especially to residential addresses. What's Unite's view on that? Is that an important issue that you've been looking at a lot with the health and safety?
It's really important, and it's part of the driver's role that's sometimes forgotten. Many people think a driver is just steering wheel attendant, and that's all they do. For many drivers, there's a hell of a lot more work that goes into the job. So that delivery point is really important. And we've worked really well with one retailer where we've looked at the delivery points to all 4,000 of their high street stores, and making sure that the road surface, the camber, the incline, decline, etc., is taken into account. So the driver then is making, of course, a dynamic risk assessment on the spot. You have to do that. But there's a formal risk assessment behind it, which gives that driver then the information that they need to say, okay, it's 500 kilos for this store, or there's an absolute maximum and it's not loaded more than that, or it needs to be done in a certain way. So it is really important. And what we would say is to involve the drivers in that. Get the driver's view, because they know what that delivery point is like. You can't do it to them, but we can do it with them.
I think it's important that the employer takes a role in this, because there's a lot of pressure on drivers when they're at the doorstep to complete the delivery. So I think companies like Ray's Distribution have taken a stand and are backing their drivers to say, if it's not safe, don't do the delivery. I think you can't put too much responsibility on the driver, because they are very keen to do the job, aren't they?
Absolutely. And it's also, the driver is the face of the company. So there's also that ambassadorial role, if you like. But from the customer's point of view, I just want the stuff that you've got in my premises now. You're just the go-between. And there sometimes is friction.
Yes.
So to have employers that will back a driver is really, really important and really positive, and we'd welcome that.
Yeah. Drivers spend a lot of time on their own, working alone. They've got to be very self-sufficient, very self-motivated. And it was quite interesting at the CV show a couple of weeks ago. There are a couple of initiatives there about the mental well-being of drivers and how they can be very isolated and don't get much support. Again, what can employers be doing more to make sure that their drivers don't feel on their own?
Well, that's a really important point. This week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and Unite across all of our sectors, not just in road transport. It's a massive priority. But in road transport, it is important. Rightly or wrongly, it's a male-dominated industry. And young men under the age of 30, suicide is the largest killer of men under 30. So it is really important. And that's the extreme end of mental health and mental illness. What we would ask is simply that there is a discussion, that we try and remove the stigma. In a male-dominated industry, we're all blokes, aren't we, Steve? And we can crack on and get stuck here and pull yourself together. Where actually, we've had really good examples where our shop stewards have worked with employers. And there's one example where a shop steward came back to me and said, we've had the discussions with the company, we've gone out and spoken to the drivers and raised awareness. And 2 drivers have come forward and asked for help and just raised it. And he said, that would be the last 2 that I would have thought before we went into this. So opening the doors, taking away that stigma. So if you're a driver and you come to me and say, look, I'm having a few problems, the cat's died, the washer's broken, the car's broken down and the wife's having an affair, that's nothing to do with work, but it impacts on your efficiency and your performance. As long as many people don't report that because they think the boss is just going to say, well, I don't want you then, you can do one and I'll get someone else in.
Yes.
If it is, okay, let's manage that, let's handle that, let's put you in the right place.
Yes. Well, you want the people out there driving those trucks who are in a good mental state, do you? You don't want somebody whose mind's wandering off somewhere else when they're doing 56 down the motorway, 44 tonnes behind.
Absolutely, and we can't forget that. No. But we also need to remember that, and it's one of the things that the RHA are doing with the Love the Lorry stuff, and we're doing it about Thinktrucker, that it's not a truck, it's not a lorry, there's a driver in there, there's a husband, a wife, a brother, a son, and there's a person in there doing a job, the same as everybody else on the road. And we need, if we can remember that and get a bit more respect in that way, that other road users give a bit more respect to drivers and the difficult role that they have, that will alleviate a little bit of that pressure as well. But you're absolutely right. The last thing we would want is a driver having external distractions when they're trying to do a very difficult job.
Fantastic. I think we'll leave it there. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thanks. Adrian, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for coming in. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Absolute pleasure.